so full of life. What is there in your life to make you sad? How are you depressed? And I'm
Correct.
like, okay, fine. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Parenthood, the podcast where we dive deep into the beautiful, challenging, and rewarding journey of parenthood. I'm your host, Neha Garg. Each week, we bring you heartfelt stories and insightful conversations with parents who share their unique experiences, challenges, and joys of raising children, unveiling the persons behind the parents along the way. Today, we have an incredibly inspiring guest with us, Anne Thomas. Anne is the head of corporate communications at Arya.ag and a dedicated mother and a resilient individual whose parenting journey is as complex as it is enlightening. And it is an honor to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
It is absolutely my pleasure, Neha, to be a part of this conversation. बहुत बड़ी-बड़ी बातें कर दी आपने, but okay. Let's start and let's talk about the incredible journey of parenting. Full
But
sarcasm.
yeah. But before that, let's start by getting to know you a little better. So,
Sure.
if your life were a book, what would be its title and which chapter are you currently living?
Oh my good Lord, are we starting with such difficult questions? Ah, what is the name of my book? I think it's just unfolding, and it every day seems like I'm halfway done there, and then it seems like a new journey. So I think it would be. I have no names. Sorry, names and me don't work. You know that I still don't have a name for my podcast, Neha. Uh, so yeah, I just think I take it as it comes.
and and where are you right now? Which chapter are you living in your unnamed book?
In my unnamed book, I hope there's a lot more chapters left
Hmm.
because I constantly feel that there's so much left to be done.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, but I am in the chapter of having uh, I think the chapter's title will be Finding My Space and Place.
right.
Uh, yeah, so I think I have done a great job in the past couple of years to be here.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh, yeah, so I think just finding my footing and being comfortable with myself. So that's a good place to be. Yeah.
sounds lovely. Yeah. And now we'd love to hear more about your family. Tell us about your partner, Thomas, and your kids, all kids, human and fur, all of them.
Yeah, so I have a large family. I have the oldest member is, of course, Yehoshua. He's
Mhm.
my first kid.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and he is currently next month turning 15.
Wow.
And yeah, the only excitement that's going around is how tall he is, or that he's taller than me, and he's waiting to get taller than Thomas.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so Yehoshua is the oldest member of the family. Uh, Thomas is the second. He works with EY and he is an alcohol expert in a way. So
Hmm.
that's his calling. And my younger son, Zachary,
Yeah.
who is now 7.
Mm-hmm.
And according to him, 8 and 9, because he just increases his age whenever he feels like it.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. And I have two fur girls.
Hmm.
Shia is 3 years old
Mm-hmm.
and adopted from my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and Winter walked into our home last year,
Mm-hmm.
silent and adorable, and had to be adopted. And a week later, we realized how loud she could actually be. And yeah, though we reconsidered the whole process, she's still around. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah. And of course, my nanny Prema, who's been with us for a very, very long time since Yahushua was a baby. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And how did you and Thomas meet? Your relationship sounds like a journey of its own ups and downs. And can you share some insights into how this has been and how you navigate all these dynamics?
Oh my God. So Thomas and I got married in 2015. So that itself has been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we know each other from childhood. Uh,
Really?
yeah, we're from the same church.
Uh-huh.
And so, but of course, it's just paths meeting over and over. So,
Yeah.
he was not a part of my life for the longest. We were in the same church, the same, there's a Sunday school that happens at church, etc. He was in my brother and sister's batch. And then, I think, we got confirmed together, which is a process where you choose becoming a Christian,
Uh,
etc. So, yeah, so that was uh, our history. But of
yeah.
course, out of each other's lives, except yes, hi, hello, social media, maybe. At that time, there wasn't much of social media
Yeah.
either. So I chanced upon him or conversations when his brother was getting married and his mom invited us. And I was in Bangalore and just I was separated by then from my
Yeah.
previous marriage.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was challenging in its own ways, and it was a very messy divorce. So we moved. So I found it very exciting he's the older brother. So
Right.
so his younger brother was getting married first.
Oh, oh.
I,
Was it a, I mean, was it something which was okay in his family, or it was like a something which is like, oh, what?
in our families, in Christian families, it's always, we like everything in order, right? We like
Right,
life to go very, very organized. There's a process to it. You do 10th, उसके बाद 12th, उसके बाद college, उसके बाद ये होना चाहिए, उसके बाद शादी होनी चाहिए. Everybody likes that very
right.
linear process,
Linearity, yeah,
linearity, yeah, in their lives. So that was what I also found interesting, that he was going away from the linearity, right? He was
right.
not ready to get married. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I didn't know anything about him at that point of time, other than the fact that his younger brother was getting married, because
Mm-hmm.
he decided that, so I had to have a call,
Yeah,
somebody who was breaking away from linearity.
yeah,
And that's how we started chatting. I think conversation started, and saying that, yeah, how does it feel to break away from the
yeah,
norm? Because I know it's a conversation that's constantly around, right? Everybody's talking about everybody else,
yeah,
and nobody talks to the person themselves and
yeah,
clarifies. And for me, it's always important to find out,
uh,
like, what's your journey? What's
yeah,
it so that's where the conversation started. And it never stopped, clearly. To the dismay of a lot many people, because it's only later that most of the people. So I was very quiet about my first marriage and how
yeah,
things had fallen apart, till I decided to just like write about it one day,
yeah,
and that's how I started. It just was piling up within
yeah,
me.
yeah.
And it was a very lonely journey, because I didn't know anybody at that point of time who had gotten a divorce, who was
Mm,
a single parent,
mm,
uh, who was dealing with just abuse, or of every kind. And it was important for me to just write about things,
yeah,
to make sense of it.
yeah,
Uh, so I think that's what changed everything, because otherwise everything was quiet. Thomas and I were talking things. He was in Orissa at that point of time. So it was very much long distance, meet once in a while kind of a thing. Uh, but I think he decided to move to Bangalore for work.
mm-hmm.
And he said he was going to join Srishti as well. And
Yeah,
that's when his mom's bell started ringing, right? And that's around the time that my blog also came out, and she figured that, dude, what's going on? You know, now I know Anne's not single. Anne's single,
yeah,
right? What is happening here? And then it was panic mode across. Uh,
mm-hmm.
it was silent treatment. It's the regular, right?
Yeah,
Boy meets girl is not good enough. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so so people had lots of things to say, but and I had decided not to get married again.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, it was so bad the first time that I was like,
yeah,
oh my God. But because it was so important for Thomas and Thomas's mom,
Mm.
uh, that we should get married. And so, yeah, we tied the knot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how is it? How's the dynamic in your household now with so many roles shifting between you and Thomas? What and your family, like it's almost it not almost, it is a blended family. So how does everyone fit in and what happens? What's the vibe like?
Yeah. So it's very interesting because uh, if you met us post the marriage, it was very difficult to understand that um, Yehoshua used to call Thomas by his name.
Yeah,
Um, for many years,
yeah,
and we were very considerate about the facts. So my life, a lot of my decisions, because as a parent, was
yeah,
always taken with Yehoshua.
yeah,
And I have not been a person who can keep secrets or who has two faces or who can, it's too complicated,
yeah,
seriously, to keep up pretenses. So what I am is right on my face, and what I have to talk about is very open. If you have a question, please ask me. Like I said, right? If there is
yeah,
something that I can talk about that can make a life different. So I've never had that. So every decision or discussion, even though it's not fair to the child at that point of time, that because I was getting separated at maybe three, when
mhm,
he was three,
yeah,
that's very young, right?
yeah,
But it was important for me to have him through that journey, right?
right,
Getting separated, Yehoshua, this is what's happening. There was
mm,
no hiding that dad's gone to job or, or
yeah,
something like that. I am getting separated. It's important for our security. It's important for our well-being that we are getting separated from your father. There is a legal process. I will try and protect you so much, but there is only this much that I can protect you with.
yeah,
Uh, I am dating this person. He's a good friend. Would you like to go out? And whoever I have dated or been with or
yeah,
been friends with, they've always known that Yoshua is a big part of my life. There's no
right,
question asked.
right,
So it's not getting Anne, and there's two of Annes, right? There's a
yeah,
adult female Anne, and there's a younger. And
yeah,
Yoshua also had his own challenges, right? As he was growing up. He was not the easiest kid
yeah,
as well. And of course, I blamed myself, my parenting, the circumstances for it as well.
mhm,
Lack of knowledge and
yeah,
information at that
yeah,
point of time, not or taking in too much information or
yeah,
taking blame from other people. I was just willing to take everything on myself.
yeah. And
Um,
also you feel so alone, right? Like there is no mentor, there is no sounding board, and there is no one to guide you through that. It's
True.
like you have to assimilate, you have to first find the information, assimilate the information, and make informed decisions
There
and
is
be
no informed, it's
responsible.
basically flip of a coin, right? What is the
And
point?
then bear the responsibility of those decisions forever
Correct.
because it's been you, who's been taking that decision.
I find that very valuable because this responsibility for I think parenting is all about taking the best decision at the point that you
Yeah,
can, right?
yeah,
Whatever we can always look back and say, oh, this could have been done
right,
differently. But as long as I think the confidence comes when you know that you're doing the best you can in the circumstances
yeah,
that you can with the resources that you can, right?
right,
Have. So
yeah,
if you do that, that's it. And then
yeah,
you say, this is the best I can do and
right,
I have done. And then there are no questions asked, right? Because
yeah,
otherwise there's always justification for everything. So we had another curve when my ex-husband passed away. Okay, and Yahush was very young. So again, there was this other layer of, will you let the child meet the parent? Will he go for to meet the
always, or
father, the
yeah,
funeral, etc., etc. And everything was a decision that I had to
right,
make,
right,
knowing well enough that, and I have only the child to justify. It's a
right,
very big task to say that,
yeah,
one, you will be blamed by a lot of people for
yeah,
whatever you do. Two, the child will ask questions of you at some point of time.
right,
And at that point of time, you need to be honest, and you need to know that, you've done your best.
Yeah.
So whichever journey I've been, Yahushua's been a part of that. So even when his father passed away, there was no way we could have made it for the funeral. I sat him down and I said, this has happened. And again, that's a lot to bear for a four and a half.
Right.
He was five, four, somewhere between 4 or 5. And for a child to bear, and we had that conversation very, very honestly with him. And we said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but do you want to sit and pray about it? And we sat down and prayed about it.
Hmm.
Similarly, I would like to get married to Thomas. This may involve certain challenges. So I said, I'm considering marriage. And he said, are you planning to marry Thomas?
Hmm.
And I said, yeah, are you all right with that? Yeah, absolutely. So that's how the next steps,
Yeah.
happened. So it was very easy because he's always been part of decisions.
How
And
old was he at that point of time when you?
2015, so I think he was 6. Yeah, he was
Oh,
6.
yeah. And a 6-year-old child, having that sense that, okay, my mom is going to marry someone else who
Yeah.
I have
It's
known.
also, so it's complicated, but for a child, being a child to a single parent is not the perfect mold, right?
Right.
He's also as much answerable to everybody else because your family unit is different.
Right.
Suddenly, a partner will allow for the
Yeah.
you also to fit
Normalcy.
in. You
Yeah.
also fit in, right? Now
Yeah.
you're a block that fits in. So in that way, it was a good thing for him in that way,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Only later also did he understand that, that will also mean changes in the dynamics, right? There is
Right.
also one more person that I have to answer to. There is also going to be decisions taken. Mama is also
Yeah.
going to have to spend more time with that other person, etc.
Right.
Those dynamics for a child is comes only later, but at that point
Right.
of time, just the normalcy of, yeah, my cousins come from a complete unit. They
Yeah.
go dad mom, dad mom child. Everybody else was complete units. We are the only ones who are, just two of us.
Right.
So I think that would have worked in Thomas's favor and mine for that level. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was very happy, and he was getting to dress up, and we had the wedding in Delhi, and
Oh,
uh,
you had the wedding in Delhi?
yes, yes. So very much whole market, the lovely church there. So it was a very proper, happy wedding that the son was part of. So
Mm.
so
Yeah.
I don't think Zach still. So even Zachary was an informed decision, right? Because
Yeah.
my brother and my sister both had second children, right?
Yeah.
So then Yehoshua felt out of
I
place.
need a sibling.
Yeah, and then the conversation started, and so I had to again and again relook all my decisions, like
Right.
whether I was getting married, or whether having another child, which I had thought I was not capable of. I
Mm-hmm.
was tired, I was exhausted as a single parent. I
Mm-hmm.
had not slept for 4 years, and parenting was really, really hard the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I had to relook that as well. And it was also Thomas's aspirations. Thomas had told me that he was okay with the fact, but I knew that we had argued about it multiple times about having a child, what a biological kid could
Yeah.
be or not, right?
Yeah.
So those conversations had come, and he had strong feelings about it. So,
Mm.
and though I said that, yeah, I'm having taking a stance about not having a child, etc., at the end of the day, you don't want somebody who has chosen you to have regrets about it, right? About
Right.
their as well.
Yeah.
And it's a big choice,
Yeah.
so I think I had to relook that decision as well. And that's how Zachary happened.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah.
And
So
how has it been like, post little baby boy coming into the picture, how it has been for Yehoshua, and he has now a little brother to raise and as well as to play
yeah,
with.
yeah, and bully
Yeah.
and get things done. You are here because I asked for it, right?
Whoa.
You are here because I asked for it, and hence you must get me that bottle of water right now.
Yeah.
They were because of me. So uh, so luckily for me, both the children are extremely, luckily and unluckily, are extremely intelligent and intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
which means that they know when to back off at some times, and they also know how to trigger you to get their stuff done, right? Uh,
Right.
so it has been an very interesting journey tackling the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when they get together, then there is
No stopping them.
no stopping them. Yeah. But both very different experiences. Mm,
Mm-hmm.
One was a child who had colic, uh,
Mm-hmm.
who, of course, I figured the ADHD and the dysgraphia and the neurodiversities much later with
Yeah.
Yehoshua.
Yeah.
Uh, but all the other challenges that I had from the beginning, the
Mm-hmm.
first 4 years, for me, Zachary was extremely different. He was the calming effect.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he, I had grown as a person. I don't think it is Zachary
Yeah.
as much by the
Yeah.
fact people always say the child is easier or the child is difficult. And I know better now that
Yeah.
Yehoshua was also responding to the environment that he was in, which
Right.
is of a mother filled with angst
Yeah.
and anxiety and stress and a lot more things.
Yeah.
Uh, and Zachary was growing up with a mom who took a break from everything else and put her focus on him and herself,
Right.
uh, drew boundaries for herself, said that she would work for some time. If she doesn't want to cook, she would keep help, no matter what
Right.
the cost was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who had a lot more say in her life, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I think that makes a huge difference that, when you have the privilege uh,
Hmm.
and to make choices, I
Yeah.
think the person you are is completely different, and the child that you raise will be completely different.
That
So,
brings me to a very, tell me if it's too personal, but I want to know from you because your circumstances were completely different, as you said, and
yeah.
maybe polar opposite. And one was, this angst-filled environment, and one for this loving, harmonious, maybe, very positive environment. So of course it makes a difference to the person you are, to the mother you are, but
Yes.
does it also make a difference to the child you raise as people maybe 10 years, 8 years, 5 years down the line? Now when you see both Yehoshua and Zachary, do you see those initial years of angst with Yehoshua manifesting in some way, uh, uh, and on the contrary, the initial period of warmth and love, and that just that calm manifesting in Zachary in some ways?
Um, There is this lovely book that I will share with you, which clearly talks about, how a child is connected to every move to the mother, right? So,
Right.
and they talk about no matter how hard you try and no matter how present you want to be,
Hmm.
right? Connection of a mother and a child, a biological mother and a child, especially, and also for children that you raise, because
Yeah.
you connect them so deeply with yourself that every time, even if you move your eyes away
Hmm.
in a certain way, I don't know how true it is, but Gabor really talks about this, saying that the child connects with your mental well-being, and there's no acting it out, right? What do we do? I've
Yeah.
sucked all the things inside. I've spent a day in court, but
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to stay calm. But the child is seeing it, is feeling it, because the body is feeling trauma, right? The body is carrying it with you, and
Yeah.
every physical. So there are two parts to this, right? So
Hmm.
environment, no matter how hard you try,
Yeah.
impacts child, right?
Right.
Having said that, he also says something that powerful about trauma is
Hmm.
that which is what we use very casually nowadays in words. I don't mean every difficult incident is trauma,
Yeah.
but when you talk about trauma, the fact that a child feels lonely and in pain or rejection or anything
Yeah.
need not be traumatic as
Mm.
long as you're with them, taking them
Yeah.
through the trauma. The
Yeah.
trauma is being alone with the hurt. The trauma is
Right.
not the hurt, right?
Right.
So was raising a child in a difficult environment impacting a child? Of course, I think that it exacerbates a lot of things
Yeah.
uh, for the child, because he also has to explain certain things to other people. People
Right.
treat you in a different way,
Yeah.
the moment you are told, and the environment also makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
Given us, right? We live in a part of Bangalore that it might be really okay. There are a lot many divorced single women.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot more normalization of it. But the
Yeah.
moment you go into pockets where, oh, you don't have a dad,
Hmm.
oh, your dad, why does your dad not come in? You
Hmm.
are answering those questions. There's no way that I can protect you from those questions,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you raise your children to be slightly different, where you, like Yosha was openly in love with pink,
Hmm.
uh, and oh, how can you love pink? And you're going to be made fun of.
Yeah.
Or why does he talk like that? Because his verbal capabilities were very, very high, and he was very nuanced in the way he could see a situation or speak about a situation. And
Hmm.
even adults around him, teachers, etc., would find that, why does a child talk like that, right? These are
Hmm.
not things that a child speaks
Right.
or says. But that's how, unfortunately or fortunately, I raised him, and Thomas and I have raised both the children. They speak the
Yeah.
way they are, they speak their minds, they know they have a say in what's happening in their lives,
Yeah.
whether it's Anne is moving to Delhi for a job or not.
Yeah.
They, it's upending their lives, so they need to have a say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, it makes a huge difference. I think the parent you are.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't even think about the environment as much as the mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much she believes she has a say, like
Yeah.
the confident human being that I had become by the time, or the person that realized that this will help my child. Like, I've
Yeah.
taken tough decisions with Zachary, right? Where I say that he's not going to school right now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and these are challenging decisions to make, especially when you come from a family that runs schools, right?
Yeah.
And and to explain, but to realize that you don't have to explain yourself. I think that's
Right.
a huge, huge win, where you say
Yeah.
that no, there are decisions you make and you don't need to explain to anybody else,
Yeah. Yeah.
other than the people who are involved very close.
Yeah. And you said, about raising Yehoshua, and I am actually very interested to know what was it like. And I don't want you to relive that trauma, but if you could just let us a glimpse into your life at that point of time. What were the circumstances? What were you battling? And how was it? How was it? Was the relationship strained even before Yehoshua came into the picture? And if yes, how did he come into the picture? And what was it like? What happened? And how did you decide to step out and raise him single-handedly?
You just took me back to the police station, and I was there, and the policeman says, uh, in Kannada, of course, ma'am, you are educated. How does this kind of stuff happen to you? You know, it's a version of that story, right?
And I'll tell you, sorry to, take the limelight, but I suffer from clinical depression and I hear this so often. Oh, you are so smiling. You are so full of life. What is there in your life to make you sad? How are you depressed? And I'm
Correct.
like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about marriage is that it's always about two people, and no matter how rosy or it looks or doesn't look,
Mhm.
only the two people know what's going on in that marriage, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
there's so much that you share, and
Yeah.
there are so many expectations in our Indian culture in a certain way for marriage. to look a certain way. And it's
Yeah.
not just being a wife, then you become a daughter-in-law, you become a sister-in-law, you become, religious groups,
Mhm.
the parties groups, whatever your groups are, you become
Yeah.
a integral part of it, and everybody has a say in your life in certain ways,
Yeah.
right? So, of course, I made a choice when I married my ex. And as I said, that was a decision that you made with the least of your understanding and with the expectation that this will get right. And when you
Right.
go into a marriage, you are going in with this. It's not like any other relationship,
Mhm.
because I've had relationships before
Mm.
and they have broken up. So why is that such a big different from a
Yeah.
marriage breaking up, and why is that such a big deal? Right? I think the whole expectation that you go into a marriage with, which is like now or forever, right? Right? Now
Mhm.
or forever kind of a thing. So you now have added this stress on yourself that no matter what, you will make this work. Uh,
Right.
right? And unfortunately, the bigger burden on marriage always
Mm.
falls on the women in our society, no matter whether it's the South or the North, whether it's
Mm.
a Christian wedding, a Hindu wedding. It's a standard. It's the
Yeah.
patriarchy ensures that the woman carries the burden of the marriage and keeping the family together, right?
Mm.
When the child makes a mistake, it's the parenting, and it's not the parenting, it's the mothering, right? It's
Right.
his fault. So I went in with those expectations, right? That I would make it work.
Yeah.
And I so what happens when you do that? You're like a horse, right?
Yeah.
You just you
Have
try to
your blinders.
blinders fitted in, and then you try to make it work, and you try to become a person that's so different. So people around me told me how different I had become
Mm.
as an individual. I was shutting up a lot more, the way I dressed, the way I spoke. I had just everything started changing, and the most important thing that I missed is how people that were part of my life were slowly getting pushed away from my life. So,
Mm.
that is one of the biggest things about abusive relationships, is that you do not see that how lonely you start getting,
Yeah.
because you're filled with people, but all the people will turn out to be the person that your partner is comfortable with. I'm not being gendered right now.
Yeah.
I'm saying that either way, abuse happens either way, just the percentages are far higher with the
Mm.
men
Yeah.
as abusers, but
Mm.
that's also cultural. So you become extremely, extremely lonely. There are going to be blames that is going to be passed again and again. There's so much gaslighting that you start to take everything upon yourself. If something
Right.
is going wrong, okay, whether it's work, you become responsible for so much more. And you also have a environment that also constantly keeps putting things back onto your plate. So
Right.
I was suddenly thrown into religion so
Mhm.
strongly, and everything was about how a good Christian wife will need to be. There was prayer 3 times a week, 4 times a week that I had to organize, I had to participate, I had to go to work because my husband was not a breadwinner in the sense that he was a partner in an organization, and there are always problems.
Mm.
And financial responsibilities come onto you, but you don't have the rights to speak up because
Right.
you're a married woman.
Yeah.
There's a place, the
Yeah.
fathers and the husbands will speak, they will sort it
Yeah.
out. And then
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that you shut, but l- was not ready for a child. That much I knew. I was not
Mm.
ready for a child. How Yehoshua happened is beyond me. is because I was being careful. I was being extremely careful. And so it's not that I didn't want children. I was
Yeah.
very young. I was thrown into it so early that I had not thought about what I wanted from life, right? I
Right.
only knew that this is what is done. Like
Yeah.
you need to get married. And of
Yeah.
course, if you're a woman who has dated before, and then your cards are always low, so it's better
Yeah.
to go with somebody you know rather than
Yeah.
a random stranger. And that's the choice I made. I went with somebody I knew who just turned around to be an abusive person, who wouldn't go to work, who would be playing video games all day long, who would have his friends over all the time with approval from his parents. And then came the cheating, which came far longer. Of course, even before that, Yahushua came into the picture. Then it became, you have a child, right? Everything is singularly that. You have to make it work for the child.
Right.
And so, between going to work 9 to 5, getting back home, feeding a child who could not do formula because he was allergic, you can imagine. I was back at work at the third month, no, second month, and in production, you know how uh, uh, stressful advertising production
Yeah.
can be. You come in and you have to pump right then because
Yeah.
your breasts are ready to pop, and your child's already finished the fifth bottle that you have sat up pumping all night.
Yeah.
uh, uh, and you're exhausted. You're mentally, physically exhausted, especially also with the colic and the allergies, which are all signs of sensory
Maybe
challenges.
overstimulation. Yeah.
Sensory challenges which I didn't know about, right? And not a single doctor simply told me that, see, the child is extremely sensitive, he's allergic, he has so many issues. This could be, he might have certain other issues. So it's all figuring out on your own.
Yeah.
And so the focus was completely on the child and the keeping things together. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and then my in-laws asked us to leave their home, and again between father and son some argument, and you have to carry it forward. So it was
Yeah.
it was very, very difficult in lot many ways, and I have written about it in my blog
Yeah.
with great detail.
Mm.
I think there was only way to for me to function much later,
Yeah.
process these things that had happened. But what was interesting is how much I worked towards no one knowing what was going on, right? How much we work towards getting the picture right, because at the end of the day, you didn't want your parents to know that you had goofed up uh,
Mm.
this big decision. There was the society that you had to answer to, because everybody would once again blame you for a failed
Right.
marriage.
Right.
You would be blamed for choosing your sanity over your child's need for a father, right?
Mm.
If you walked out, walking out was not an option till I was pushed into the
Yeah.
worst possible situation where my ex just made it impossible for me to stay in that marriage, in the
Mm.
sense that it was scary to spend the night in the house with him. He became an alcoholic, he became abusive, he would just call people my the other angle, unfortunately, was of course the cheating,
Yeah.
uh, also with my closest friend and my cousin.
I-
So that was my only support system that I had. So when I split from my husband, I also split from all the support systems that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How how scary and how lonely, and
Yeah.
how I don't want to belittle your journey by saying, how brave of you, because yeah, I don't want to say that, but seriously, I think we don't know how much strength we have.
Oh, we shouldn't. We shouldn't
We
need to know.
shouldn't.
We
Yeah.
shouldn't need to
Yeah,
know how
and
much.
I'm just thinking that your sharing has made me think of two things. One, what a great service your husband did by pushing you over the edge, because other than that, there was no way you would have gotten out of there. If it was just on the fence, you would be on the fence. But
Yeah, yeah. I was willing to live with somebody who was a terrible husband, who
yeah,
took no responsibility for their child. I was ready to forgive a man who had cheated on me with somebody so close. I was ready to live with somebody who took no financial responsibility, just to keep things okay. And that says a lot about who you are as a person, in terms of, no, in the sense, I'm not saying that who you are in the person is how much my internal conversation
Yeah.
about myself, or how my self-worth had diminished
Right.
the
Right.
years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, the second thing that I wanted to say, that you are actually getting abused twice. One by your husband or whoever is the perpetrator, and once again, the second time, by yourself. When you are telling yourself a story that this is not abuse, when you are
Correct,
trying to normalize it. And
correct.
I am thinking that, how much energy does it take to suppress that abuse, to paint a nice picture, and to live with that day in and day out, living a reality or acting out a reality which is a fake reality. And you
Made
just,
up reality, yeah.
yeah, or a made up reality. You've just created those stories for yourself. It's almost like you need that crutch or support of that delusion to just go on with your life. Otherwise, you'll fall apart.
I remember when I had separated and I decided to buy myself a car,
Mm-hmm,
and I wanted to select the car seats.
mm-hmm,
It's so small a fact, right? What
yeah,
color uh car am I gonna get?
mm-hmm,
Okay. So thankfully the Duster had just gotten launched, and the company took that decision for me, saying, if you want the car right now, this is the only color available. And then came the car seats, right? And I wanted to get white car seats. It's always been a dream that, but I couldn't make that decision. A part of me just could not take that decision. And Thomas and I were not even dating. He was just, I think Thomas was on a call with me. And I'm like, I was standing at that showroom, and I'm like, I need to get car seats. Do you think white is okay? I was willing to take a stranger's
yeah,
opinion on my car that I am paying for, because I was coming into a situation that I couldn't take any decisions.
yeah,
Uh, so that was another big realization for me, saying how scared I was to take any decision, because apparently I didn't have the wherewithal. Apparently, I had been told that I never get anything right.
yeah,
I had been told that who would support me. I didn't have the sensibilities to make anything work. There's so many conversations day in and out. And unfortunately, and see, these are things that happen now, with time, that happen on a daily basis across the world. And,
right,
but at that point of time, just to have somebody to look at, right?
yeah,
Or talk to, or have a sounding board, or say that this is okay, or this is what is to expect. I
mm-hmm,
think it's a humongous difference.
yeah,
Uh, but here I had family. Family was extremely supportive. I shouldn't blame them. They said at
yeah,
the end of the day, whatever you choose. But I had people who said that, statements from his church. There was a leader who said that today you will leave him,
mm-hmm,
and tomorrow he will go behind somebody else, and your child will be orphaned. And I'm like, I have come to you, and
yeah,
this is the kind of advice that you give from as a religious leader, saying to a woman who's really struggling to breathe right
yeah,
now,
yeah,
trying to do right by her child, is this the kind of advice that you would like to give them? So getting the right kind of advice is so important at that point of time. Or just random people who can say,
yeah,
this is not okay,
yeah,
or not. And I think the only reason I was able to step out of that marriage was thanks to one friend who was my college friend,
mm-hmm.
by the way, was banned in my home, because
Oh,
she would put ideas into my head. Uh,
uh-huh.
and who had come in to stay with me, because, for a while that I was alone with Yehoshua, and Yehoshua had to be rushed to the hospital so often as a
Yeah,
baby. So she said to me, I had, that if he comes home today, and I was very happy that he had come back home
Yeah.
uh, on Christmas. And oh, look, he put his ego aside and he's come back. And, but he came with alcohol bottles anyways, because he had a point to prove, right? I had said, I cannot take a person with alcohol in my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
He came with alcohol bottles. And she said, and whatever you're thinking right now,
Hmm.
don't do it. Let's see where it goes.
Hmm.
Okay, I think that not going back at that point of time
Yeah.
changed everything, because then a lot of things started falling in place. I came back home for a bit. He never came back for a month to check on his child. And then I realized that, a person whose ego is above his child does not deserve to be a parent. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, but I had to be pushed to that extent to
Mhm.
to get out of that relationship. And that is the sad part of it. Yeah.
Or yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying, and and I'm just thinking about that time, that younger you, that maybe a more uh, less wise wiser less
A
wise
foolish Anne.
or a naive Anne,
Yeah.
who's trying to
Oh,
make things work all by herself while painting a picture for the world that everything is okay. So I am just thinking about who who did you find support in, or can you share some meaningful connections or interactions with someone other than, or maybe with these people only, with this college friend of yours who kind of sort of turned out to be a catalyst for you to break that break that boundary and say that okay, this is it. And Thomas, who you found solace in, as a friend and as a lover and now as a husband. So were there any more people who you could talk
lots
to?
more, so the thing that most people are scared about is change, right? Now that I work with women who are going through a lot more abuse, and I see the same thing story repeat over and over, a part of you is just laughing, right?
Yeah.
Because how many times does the same loop play out?
Mm,
And you know exactly what's coming for them,
mm,
because you've been there and you've seen it, and you see it around. But for them, it's life and death. For me, the biggest fear was my son being taken away from
mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
was my biggest fear, and I was constantly threatened with that.
Mm,
But the beautiful thing was that the moment you take a stand for yourself,
mm,
I don't know how and where from, but people come through. People come through, opportunities come through. Being a single parent, I don't know, with the salary that I was earning,
mm.
for example, uh, got separated. Anu walked into my house that very day, right? And said, okay, I will stay with you till things change. And
Yeah.
she was there. I had a friend, continues to be a nurturer for me, Ajay, from Srishti, who constantly, so Srishti was that space for me that
Right.
out everything else. And it was again a chance conversation that got me that job, who got me that space. And it for me, it was my sanctuary, right?
Mm,
And it was a sanctuary for many other people, because you knew that you can walk into that space and no matter what, nobody could come and attack you there. Nobody could
right.
threaten you there. Okay.
Yeah.
You were looking at women who were, you know, Geeta was 60 years plus, but a formidable woman. You knew that nobody is going to come in and mess with you. And you see young, old, all sorts of people who are just finding their place, their way, their life. And you have people who understand, and you can get away from everything else and
Yeah.
have conversations that are not about survival.
Right.
Right. So I think everybody at Srishti, the few people that I had, that safety, that net that I had created for myself made a humongous difference for me, and for Yehoshua as well. So very soon we moved away from here closer to Srishti, and we got a restraining order. I met Venkatesh through another friend, Prema, who is another formidable woman. We never got along in college, but the moment I messaged saying, I need a lawyer,
Mm,
I need help. And, Venkatesh didn't take me through the divorce, okay, BT as he's known. But what he did was two things for me, which were life-changing. One, he got me a restraining order from
mm,
my husband, which you won't believe helped me so much.
mm.
Otherwise he was following us, he was threatening us. There was dharnas happening. It was a very public divorce. His family had gone on to television, so it was a very, very publicly weird divorce that nobody wanted to. And when that happens, you kind of also what do? You kind of go into your own little shell.
Well,
You don't want
yeah,
to be part of anything that is happening, at least because your life is impacting your families, your relatives, etc.
yeah.
Uh, so I had friends like Ajay who just said, I had somebody who passed away now, Liz, who was living on her own. She was much older than me, but
Mm.
she would just say, children need to have discipline. Any problem, dunk the child into water and let them play. So, and there were these things that you learned from her where she doesn't feel like meeting you. She would lock the door and not respond to the bell.
Oh, she's my hero.
Yeah, I could not have imagined somebody not opening the door to a guest.
Hmm.
Okay. But when Liz didn't want to speak with you, it didn't matter who you were. And
Hmm.
you were not supposed to get offended. And nobody in her life got offended that you didn't open the door because you didn't want to talk to me.
Hmm.
Having said that, if my son walked in without telling me, you know, she would just sit with him. She would make eggs with him. She would just talk. And so normally, no, nothing he did was abnormal
Hmm.
compared to a lot more, right? It was the most normal thing for you to walk away from the boring kids who were just not interesting, and you wanted to chat with me, come join and have a conversation. So to have somebody that your son thought was okay,
Yeah.
and then just a message will come, he's with me, don't worry about it.
Hmm.
To have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some formidable people that were there. I have a friend called Pooja who again lived right there. So everybody just popped up now and then. And where people came from is,
Yeah.
I remember going to the court one day, and I had to take Yehoshua that day, and I was really scared again that they would just snatch the kid away. And I was right. They had 15 people in the court and me alone. And I remember a friend's friend said, I'll come with you. And he was a person who never steps out of his house. And he uh, just stepped out of the house and said, I will come with you. And
Yeah.
he sat with me through the whole process. And I had another friend, Vinayak, who was waiting in the car outside, till we left with the child safely. And Mira, who was there with me when my car was surrounded
Hmm.
by different people. And I remember your body responds, right? When they
Yeah.
talk about fight and flight, your body responds. And my legs, I'm an excellent driver, but my legs were shaking
Hmm.
like this on the accelerator that day. And just to know that I didn't have to do that alone. And
Yeah.
I had somebody like Mira with me who just said, no, and don't go alone. Because I said, I'm a little nervous today to go to
Yeah.
court. And I go to court alone a lot.
Hmm.
She said, and don't go to court alone. I'll come with you.
Hmm.
And to have that. And so it's not about how much somebody does, it's the
Yeah.
moment they come to you in that spot, right? And and I think that has something to do with uh, something divine,
Yeah.
if anything, that you will always have the right amount to pay the lawyer, you will have the right amount to pay the the fees. You will know how to, make a deposit on a home with security system when you need that.
Yeah.
Uh, or it could be, I think the money is also thanks to your parents or the everybody else, but just that situation that protects you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I would want for my children to know, that if there's a challenge, you can always come back home
Yeah.
and know that even if we are not around, there's something will come to protect you as long as you've done something right.
Yeah.
And if you've done something wrong, be prepared. Be prepared to get what you deserve. There
Right.
is no escaping, the wrath of the world in some way, in whatever way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm also very interested to know, Anne, does Zachary know of what transpired and what has happened before he
Hmm.
came in
So,
the picture?
yeah. It hasn't been intentional that
Mm.
we haven't spoken about it, but just not the need or the opportunity, right?
Hmm.
Um, that we have not had a conversation with Zachary. We've not called ourselves a blended family. We've never
Yeah.
had the need to.
Yeah.
Uh, Zach knows that Yoshua is his older brother. Both of them
Yeah.
share the same father as much as,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm.
Uh, Yehoshua might get angry tantrums or say nasty things like, "I hope, wish you were dead."
Yeah.
That, and when you have language on your side, you can
Yeah.
throw the worst, and you know where it hurts most. So,
Yeah.
Zachary, I wish you were dead. I don't know why I asked for you to be born. Those are, and for someone on the outside, that sounds very, very harsh. And
And especially knowing the context,
yeah,
it might just,
it
yeah,
might rattle others, but
yeah,
that's the whole intention, right? That's the whole
yeah,
intention, that you want to rattle the ones
yeah,
around you and say that but it's just, so I'm not saying it's okay, but you know what to pay attention to and what
yeah,
to let go. Uh,
right.
Never had the need to have that conversation till, of course, we came back to Bangalore, and again, visitation came back onto us.
Mhm.
So it's been a noose around my neck, head around a long time. The divorce came through, but my ex also give his parents the rights because he knew he had cancer.
Mhm.
And I signed off a document, said that his parents would have visitation rights. Of course, they never turned up for 4, 5 years and suddenly walked into our lives, and said, we want rights. And the High Court, of course, always, unfortunately, gave allowed them to see the child under supervised visits. But the moment, again, abusive relationships are about sucking the energy out of you. And the
Yeah.
moment you say, I'm not letting the energy get sucked out, people
Hmm.
lose interest,
Right.
which is what has happened for us, thankfully. So that was again one challenging period because we had come back, we were just getting settled. Zachary doesn't know about these people, and Yehoshua has to be taken to these meetings. And how is Yehoshua going to respond to these people
Yeah.
who he has not met? He was very curious. He was interested. He was nice to them,
Mhm.
which a part of me was like, why is he nice to them? They don't deserve to be nice. But then again, it was, again, thank God there is therapy. And you have conversations and you realize you're being a child.
Yeah.
Uh, Child Anne is responding, and you say, no, please go. Please
Yeah.
meet.
Yeah.
Please understand. The more family you have, great. But unfortunately, again, I couldn't protect my child from the hurt that he was going to face with rejection,
Right.
right? Where they walked in one day, they waltzed in, they got a court order saying visitation has to be granted, and then they don't turn up.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't meet the child, and then they threaten the child saying, no, you have to meet us. We are your grandparents. And that's when Thomas had to take a stance and say, you cannot threaten a child,
Hmm.
uh, anything, right? So he had to go through that pain of rejection at some level again, but
Yeah.
and again I blamed myself for a second, and then I had to stand back and say there's nothing you can do to protect your child from the circumstances he is in. So he has to brave through it. So
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, you have been quite vocal about your struggle, and you've written it on the blog. And now that we have this podcast, which will be public. So, what happens? And of course, there's only so much, as you said, that you can protect your children from. So
True.
tomorrow there might be a situation where both Yehoshua and Zachary might go online and read your story, listen to these podcasts. So have you thought about that? Because and is that because one way of looking at it is that, because and that doesn't seem to me to be the your stance, is that there is something that I don't want to talk to my child about, or the other way is that it is so normal that I don't know what to talk about. So when the time comes, and if the time comes, we'll deal with it. So till then, I'm not going and raking that, whole thing up. Is that
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah, so
like
couple of
that?
things there, right? So both for Thomas and Yehoshua, by they knew that this is who the person I am, and
Right.
Yehoshua and Thomas and I are on the same page that we are going to be open about anything, at least within the relationship and
Yeah.
externally. And everything that we do or say is a learning for us as well as for others, right?
Right.
Now, why I have not told Zachary anything about the past, there has never been a need for it, right? There has
Right.
never been a conversation. As I said, anything that Zach asks me or a child asks me, I will say, do my best to answer them
Right.
most honestly, right? So, because my ex passed away, there
Yeah.
is no presence of the person in our lives.
Yeah.
Because for 5 years we were in Kolkata,
Hmm.
uh, 4 years, and Zach was 3 when we came. There was no, those people were not a part of our lives. Okay.
Right.
When he did go to meet, we just said, Zachary, he has to go for a meeting
Yeah.
with some relatives. And, can I go? I said, no, it won't be a good idea for you to go, right? They may not be nice to you. So I'd rather you stay with me,
Mm.
right? Or we would go to the park or something like that, because I didn't want to go for those meetings. It would
Yeah.
trigger so much in me. And I didn't want Yehoshua to pick up that.
Right.
So there has never been a conversation where I want to bring in a wedge between the boys.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm sure Yehoshua will throw it at him at some point, saying, "Oh, but even they have see the maturity of the child. He will say that you should not have been born, but
Yeah.
he will mention something like,
Yeah.
but you're not my brother, or
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
It hasn't happened,
Yeah.
and. We are a single unit for all it
Yeah.
takes and for all
Yeah.
it's worth, right? We are a unit like any other, which has its own challenges, which
Mm.
has its own problems. Yehoshua has ADHD. His mother has ADHD. He has, he has dysgraphia. Zachary can be extremely, extremely difficult when he wants to be, nitpicky when he wants to be. Thomas comes with his own challenges, but there's love about everything else. And it's like, I see you, you see me, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I know that when my boys go and find something online, they
Mm.
will see that this is their mother
Yeah.
being herself,
Yeah.
speaking her mind, her truth,
Yeah.
and what she thought was right for herself. As I said, what is right for you in the circumstances? When Yoshua says, do not post about me,
Mm.
or do not do that, I avoid conversing. But I have very clearly said, as long as it perceive, it has to do with me
Yeah.
and you, I can talk about it. If
Yeah.
your personal stuff, what you say is private to you, and I'm not going to talk about it. There's that
Yeah.
respect that I have,
Yeah.
right? So I had this conversation. I missed having a conversation with Yehoshua about our podcast, but I did have this conversation with Thomas saying, is there something that you would like me not to mention? Or
Yeah.
because the whole part I may have it's about getting emotional easily, about not
Right.
having filters. Now that comes with ADHD, right? It comes with
Right.
ADHD, that I do not have filters, and I might say the wrong thing at the wrong time, right?
Yeah.
But I have worked on it, at getting better, but it works for me that this is who I am. So if there is something that you do not wish for me to talk about, let me know. And he said, no, why?
Yeah. That
So,
I
yeah.
think that's a very, that's a very insightful thing that you've said about this confidence that comes with the kind of boys you're raising and the kind of parenting that is going into it, that to get up and say that if they see something, they would know and they would accept, and they might take time to accept, that's fine, but they will accept that this is the person who their mother is.
No,
And
but even if they do not accept, Neha, they will have the freedom to come and talk to me about it then and there, right?
right.
They will
Yeah.
come and say, why did you say this?
Yeah.
They will give me the opportunity, is what
Yeah.
I hope and pray for, is to
Yeah.
clarify or to understand their perspective. So
Right.
that's why these whole pieces about conversations are so
Conversations.
important, right? Where
Yeah.
we say that we're going to talk about uncomfortable conversations. Yoshua, you're 14. Are you going to start dating soon? Are you going to start dating guys or girls? Now,
Mm.
that's an option,
Yeah.
right? If I say, oh, are you going to date girls tomorrow? That's already, I put it on the plate that,
Yeah.
you're straight and this is what your choices are. And
Right.
I don't know or whether I should be talking about it. And we're suddenly seeing him see, adult like shows, and we are,
Yeah.
doesn't, I can't protect him, and this is the reality. And so we have a very simple, straight rule about language, right? I use language,
Mm.
inappropriate language.
Mm.
And Zach, oh, you said the word, it'll be F word, M word, B word, L word. He will say all random things and he will call me out.
Hi. Hi.
Say hi.
You're going in and out. You're like a ghost.
I heard you. Yeah, so he will call me out on that, right? So we have, and there are all the music on Spotify today has language in it. It's
Yeah.
really impossible. There's no clean music that's good. There's no good music that's clean.
Clean. Yeah.
That's the other piece of it. So we have a deal, you can hear inappropriate music, but you're not going to use inappropriate language, right?
Right.
So, and I am, because I'm an adult and I have, earned the
Privilege
the
to
privilege of using it. But please do not let that.
use it. Okay. And imagine you're sitting across with your pre-parent self. Okay. I know it's been a very long time, but
Yeah,
just, yeah,
imagine.
just,
I would like to imagine. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Waiting for the boys to turn 18 each, So
empty nest.
emptiness. Oh, people call it emptiness, and I'm like, why?
So, if there is a piece of advice that you could give to your pre-parent self, what would it be?
Love yourself a little more, right? Know what
Mhm.
you like. Julia Roberts, it was a very silly movie in Runaway Bride, but she said,
Yeah,
know how you like your eggs.
yeah,
I think it has a humongous meaning to, we don't let our girls spend time alone. We
yeah.
don't let our girls live alone. And then we suddenly want them to be comfortable with themselves, make
Mm,
better choices. We throw them into responsibilities for others. I think we should allow our girls to, spend time with themselves, either
yeah,
it's and to just know what they like, how they like their eggs, because they're constantly looking up to or influenced by or told how to do things. You never know what is the right thing for you.
mm,
Uh, so I think the moment you have a better understanding of what you want in life or who you are, and when I say understanding, a forgiving and a loving understanding of yourself, right?
yeah,
Where you say, so for I got the ability to just tear up, right? I never knew that ADD had such an impact on myself, because I was also a high achiever. And that was
yeah,
in the sense that you're constantly the class prefect or
yeah,
the one who's the bulletin board manager. You're doing so many things, and you're just like, oh, she's a person who does so many things, etc.
yeah.
You didn't realize that that's your need for doing,
Keeping
multiple
yourself,
things.
yeah,
Yeah. So that was your, way to keep, be functional,
yeah,
that you always let your mind, decide, the others decide for yourself, saying that, okay, maybe you're not, uh, if you're not doing something for somebody, or if you're not at doing something, you're not good enough, right?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
such high expectations of you're good because,
Yeah.
or you are loved because. There
Yeah.
is no because,
Yeah.
and just to get to that sense of you are loved, full stop.
Right.
You are enough, full
Yeah.
stop. You
Hmm.
know, um, you can say no, full stop, complete
Yeah.
sentence. You
Yeah.
don't have to say yes to somebody, the whole pleasing people,
Yeah.
or accept yourself. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge. And then you will not be wanting or waiting to get accepted, validated, be called a good mother, justify your reasons of why you parent a certain way, why you do not parent a certain way, why you send your child to school, why you do not send your child to school, why you eat cornflakes for breakfast, why you, there's so many things.
Yeah. And,
Yeah,
as they say, whatever you do, you
yeah,
will be judged.
correct.
Whatever you do, or whatever you don't do. So,
But it's so much self-importance we give ourselves,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Also, because you're so worried about the world in a certain way that they think you think that the whole world is worried about what you are doing or not. Of course, you're fodder for interesting conversations. So what's so bad about that, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
be fodder for interesting conversations and
And
move on with it.
yeah, and I think one thing that my outlook on this complete scenario changed drastically when my husband drilled it in my head. He said one very important thing to me. He said that, you don't have to constantly read the room. If people have to say something, let them say it to your face and then respond. You don't have to constantly think that, oh, she said that, but she meant that. And because in our society, people do that. Your mother does that, your sister does that, your mother-in-law does that, your sister-in-law does that, like everywhere. And why am I only talking about women? Men do that too. And everybody around you does that. They would not, they would taunt you, talk indirectly that, oh, you are doing this. And in that, there will be a hidden message that you are doing this and you are not doing this. And you have to, like, you constantly, because you have been raised in a manner where you are constantly reading the room, you have that need to please people, you have that need to put others before you, so you will constantly be reading what is between or beneath the lines, and you would be, responding to the needs that have been unsaid before they are even uttered. And my husband just jolted me one day and he's like, you don't have to do that. Let people say it on your face. And people stopped saying it on my face. And now my life is very simple. I see everything. I take everything on face value. If you have to say something to me, come to my face and say it, and let's have a chat about it. Otherwise, what I'm not seeing, I'm not hearing, I'm not listening.
There's a word for it. It's called hypervigilance. We are
Yeah.
trained to hypervigilance. It's like in a classroom or in any situation, you can look at some of the women who know when the cup is going to get over,
Yeah.
right? The tea is
Yeah.
almost done, and your hand, before the person has given you the cup, your hand has already reached out to take the cup into the tray. That's how, and we forget that we are trained to
Yeah.
look. So it's not that we woke up one day and said, let me check if the room, what the room is. We
Yeah.
are trained as children and especially as women from young days to see किसकी रोटी खत्म हो गई है,
Right.
किसको रोटी चाहिए, किसका खाना खत्म हो गया, प्लेट अंदर जाना है, ओके,
Right.
की सब्जी है, how many eggs, how does it that the women know that there are only 2 eggs left in the fridge,
Yeah.
okay, and hence that needs to go onto the shopping list. It's a training, right? And that's what I want for my boys to see. And I'm still not there, right? Far from it. But this hyper, of course, we don't want hyper vigilance, and how this reading the room goes into layers of trying to understand, is somebody trying to give you a message, right?
Right.
Maybe they weren't,
Yeah.
but you have been trained to constantly look out for messages for yourself because you want to be constantly validated and evaluated by a third person, right?
Right.
So maybe they were not intending to say
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, but your need for validation from that third person
Yeah.
saying that, oh, you want to hear all the wrong messages, or and you are
Yeah.
self-critical,
Yeah.
and it's that self-criticality, because there is nothing that you can do that can be perfect, right? And your need for
Right.
perfectionism,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You need to have everything perfect. Now, these are all coming from our specific challenges or in the ways that our brain is wired. And it takes a lot to say. So, for me, I had to say, oh, Neha needs something. And before Neha asks for it, I will have to do it for her. And that's when I'm a good human being, when I
Yeah.
see and I do. Right. And
Yeah.
that's the training plus my brain wiring, which needs to be, oh, you are such a good person, right?
Yeah.
uh, oh, you're such a wonderful human being because you see other people's needs. What are you trying to prove?
Yeah.
Oh, so that constant, so it's a rule that I have made for myself, thanks to my amazing therapist, Sandhya, who has clearly said, you only act if you are asked to.
Right.
And can you take this cup inside? It's my pleasure to,
Yeah.
right? You will not extend your hand to take the cup
Yeah.
uh, unless you have been asked to, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you always have women taking notes in meetings, right?
Yeah.
Uh, or could you organize coffee for everybody?
Yeah.
Why? Because and that's the picture, right? That's the image that we have created for the gender that we are in. And it's our job to stop being so vigilant and to just say, it's all right. Stop and take care of yourself. Or if somebody needs something, they will ask you. You don't have to ask for or look for messages in the bottle, under, beneath, between. So, yeah.
Yeah. This is, I'm so, this is so heartwarming that you are saying this. And I completely relate with every word you're saying, especially because you are a mom to boys, and I am a mom to a boy, a human boy. And, these, seeing the patriarchal structures so clearly, and then having that wish and having that that kida to do something about it and to raise our boys in such a manner that they don't turn out to be the exact replicas of the men we see around, or men of our generation who I think are also struggling with their own. Matlab, that's a conversation.
That's another conversation
Yeah,
altogether.
yeah. But I'm just, this is so heartening to see that a mom who has boys is so aware of all these things, and this makes me so hopeful that the next generation of boys will. Yeah, it makes me hopeful. A girl can hope, and you can make the faces that you are making all that you want, but a girl
I
can
I
hope.
have my husband stand at the door every day at the washroom, and I know he's calling Yehoshua, and I know that it's because Yehoshua has left his clothes in the washroom and not into the bucket, into the
But
washroom.
the thing is that he knows that the clothes will go into the bucket. That's the important part, and the action comes sooner or later. But I think it's the knowledge which needs to be imparted right now, and I think you're doing a great job of it.
Yeah. So there's another very interesting piece to that, right? Uh, you have to work very hard not to be bitter. You
Yeah.
have to work very hard. It's not like you are standing against the tide.
Yeah.
prove a point.
Yeah.
You only stand up when you have a point to prove, right?
Right.
So we also have to be very careful with boys, right? When we are
Yeah.
raising, that we're not just like, okay, you are behind their life for the sake of it.
Yeah.
This is their personality. You have to remember that he
Yeah.
is forgetful and he will mess up things. And it's not, as long as our kids are aware, and I say kids are aware that, gender, the certain genders that are far more privileged than
Yeah.
the others.
Yeah.
And in our society, it's the boys.
Yeah.
And let's not even talk about the LGBTQI
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
They are not even in any. And there was this lovely talk, by the way, I will share it with you yesterday, that I was listening about ADHD in women, and
Mm.
how he talks. A doctor says that women were not even considered. Even forget women. Look at the female sex, even in the animals that were tested.
Mhm.
They only have about 30% that tested the tests, 30% of the tests that tested the other
Oh,
gender. And all the learnings that you have right now don't fit in
uh,
for us as such. And now they have slowly waking up to the idea that, it is different and you have to test for women and for the other gender as well.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, so insightful. So I don't want this conversation to end. As always, as speaking with you offline, online, and with for work, for pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And
Same here.
last question I will ask. I know you have given us so much to think about, so much to be ruminating on. But if there was just one piece of advice or insight that you would give the young parents who are just maybe starting their parenting journey or are midway through their parenting journey, of what can help them be a better version of themselves as parent and as people, what would that advice be?
Um, One is to trust yourself
Mm-hmm.
and to question yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when I say trust yourself, I say that when you're taking a decision, you ask yourself, just go by your gut. This feels right. As a parent's gut, I believe really works. And if
Mm-hmm.
that is not working, you also question yourself and
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, is that my training?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that my voice, or is that actually the training that I have received all my life, right? At
Yeah.
40, you have questioned everything about yourself. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and in my blog, I also talk about, there is a mode that you have, which is your go-to, which is the easiest, simplest go-to mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're really frustrated, and it might be just like snap, or it might be like shut down, or it might be, and sometimes we are just repeating what has happened to us over the years. But
Mm-hmm.
of doing that, when I say go by your gut, I don't mean going back to the same cycles that we have gone through, but question those cycles and make your voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, find your voice and use that voice for your child. Yeah, and keep their interests at heart. It's not about you. It's not about your partner. It's not about anything else. It's about the child's well-being.
Yeah.
And you need to do that for them, and you need to be the voice for them whenever required, especially in our community, when there are so many challenges for children.
Yeah.
We don't have a safer space.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, whether it's gender, whether it's diversity, whether it's whatever, neurodiversity. There are times that you have to speak up and stand up against the tide. Don't
Yeah.
flow. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't flow with
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much. And having you on the show has been an absolute joy. Your journey of navigating parenthood with resilience, humor, and unwavering dedication is just truly inspiring. Thank you for sharing your heartfelt stories and insights with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Neha. It's always a pleasure to chat about parenting. I would have enjoyed if we were ranting about parenting more. Yeah. Yeah, but maybe some other time we shall
Yeah,
get
maybe.
together and rant again.
Definitely, definitely. And to our listeners, I hope this episode has touched you as much as it has touched me. And story is a powerful reminder of the strength and love that define parenthood. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, subscribing, and sharing it with your friends and family. Your support is what keeps this community growing and thriving. Until next time, this is Neha Garg signing off from Parent. Until next time, this is Neha Garg signing off from Parenthood. Remember to embrace every moment, cherish your loved ones, and continue your parenting journey with courage and joy. Take care and stay connected.